API. You remember? A, the letter P, the letter I. And if we don't know it, what do we do?
Ask.
We look it up, right?
Yeah.
So this is working. Okay. So what's API? Greta, what's an API?
Application programming interface.
An application programming interface. So now we know there's so many acronyms in technology, right? We're inundated in it. And first of all, we need to know the meaning of the acronym. And second of all, what's the most important is what, Greta, is why use it? Why even know it, right? Just to say, oh, Greta, you're going to impress somebody by saying, I know what the meaning, I know what API stands for, application programming interface. We need to know an application programming interface. What is it? What does it stand for? And what does it mean? And what else? Who cares? And how is this going to help businesses? Right, Greta? That's the key. So I think about we're in what application right now, Caitlin? Caitlin, what application am I in right now?
Oh, Zoom.
I'm Zoom. Zoom is what? Is an application software program. You remember we talked about software, we talked about operating systems, we talked about application software, and I'm right now in an application software is Zoom. Now, when I stream, on the very top it says I was in YouTube, right? So if I share my screen, right, and I bring up Chrome, what do I see right here? Caitlin?
You see the YouTube.
I see YouTube Live. I see YouTube Live, right? I see YouTube Live right here, right? That was happening, right? That was in my screen. Let me just copy this. And let me copy it to my notepad, right? But what did I do? I went to, you can see this, I went to YouTube live streaming. How did I get there? Within Zoom, right? Within Zoom, I can share, I can stream live to YouTube. I could stream, even if I go through my three dots, what did it say? I could do live stream, and YouTube allows me to live stream to YouTube, live stream to Facebook, live stream to Twitch. Based on that, I have an enterprise version of Zoom that is a paid version of Zoom that the university has purchased with a number of users to use Zoom. So it's not Zoom that you can get for free. Have you ever known, Caitlin, you can get Zoom for free, but you do not get the added features of streaming live to YouTube. But what I want us to do is see how businesses could use this, how education could use this. So I'm taking advantage, since we are authorized users of Zoom based on our affiliation with the university, my affiliation, and granted, they're also giving students the same affiliation. They're not giving me any more services than they're giving you. Isn't that great, Caitlin, that you can then do that? Zoom is one product, an application software product. YouTube is another application software product. Are they the same company, Caitlin?
Zoom and YouTube?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Oh, no, right. And who owns YouTube? Who owns YouTube? Raise your hand if you know. Who owns
Google?
Google, or Alphabet right now they're called, but we know them as Google, right? So where does API fit in, Greta? So where can you say then, I am a user of Zoom. I'm using Greta Wright. I'm using their enterprise version that allows me to stream to YouTube. Where does the API fit in? Luke, did you understand my question? What's my question?
How does the Zoom API fit in?
How I have Zoom. Can I stream to YouTube via the enterprise version?
Yeah.
Yeah. So where does the API fit in that connection? That's my question. Did you understand my question, Quinn?
Yeah.
Repeat my question. Maybe in your own words.
Like how it's like how API kind of allows YouTube and Zoom to interact.
Exactly. So basically, Zoom has to give permission to YouTube to make that like link, make that connection. YouTube needs to want to have that connection. But it's YouTube connecting to Zoom that makes it. What's the advantage, Quinn, for YouTube, for Zoom, to give them an API?
Well, Zoom can get their like platform out on YouTube.
And do you have to leave Zoom in order to get YouTube to stream live? Is that
No,
an advantage?
yeah.
Yes. Does it save time for the end user? Did it save time for you, Cam, that you didn't have to go, you could go straight there and still be in Zoom? What advantage is it to YouTube? Quinn.
Well, they're getting more users because people from Zoom are
Exactly.
using
Isn't that the
YouTube.
name of the game? Getting more users. And even if they don't, we're paying for, and that's why Zoom is, if I wanted a free version of Zoom, could I do that? No. So basically they have to differentiate itself as a business model, Quinn. What's your major again? Remind me.
Business undecided.
Undecided, but think about business, right? We need to be profitable, right? So one of the things that Zoom figures is I have to differentiate to the university or to any corporation why I'm going to charge those corporations versus I give a free version. There's a reason they want to give free versions, not from the goodness out of their heart. It's basically they want everybody to be familiar with Zoom. And then when they're in a corporation, basically when they say, hey, this class is on Zoom, you know how to log on, right? And then we went into further detail and they said, if we're going to charge the university, and look at this. You see this? You see right in the corner here in my YouTube, if I go in the corner, there was a little powered by Zoom. There was a little basically you here in the corner, right? You see this? You see this, Quinn?
Yeah,
What is that?
it's just our logo.
Our logo. So basically the university said, hey, we can brand it by putting the logo. Did you put that logo on? I didn't put that logo on. By us using already their Zoom, they say, hey, let's brand it. I don't have control since I'm not the administrator. I don't have control over what brand it is. But if we were a corporation, Quinn, and we decided to be a company and we bought the software, we could put our brand right there. But for our purposes, it's good enough because we are part of this organization, right? So I think that's good. But if we wanted to do another one, we could basically do that. Everybody with me so far? So this is what they call an API, an application program interface. See, Caitlin, you already know it, but you don't have to know the technical part about it. But if you were in a company and you had another software that could work with Zoom, you would tell then your programmer, you know what we should do is we should create an API that we can hook into Zoom, because then people could get to use ours. And what there is now, which I think is really exciting, is there's something called VAPI. So I know what API is, right, Quinn? Is what? Application Program Interface. You remember I talked about 1-800-CHAT-GPT? Do you remember I did that?
Yeah.
What was that?
Where you could like call on your phone and it was basically talking to ChatGPT.
Yeah. And you could use any phone. You could even use a smartphone. You could use an Android phone. You could use an iPhone. You could even use a dumb rotary phone that maybe your grandma has or your great grandma has in her house. And you could talk to, and she says, you know what? I don't even have internet access. Well, you know what, Grandma, you can call 1-800-CHAT-GPT. So what do you think the V is an API mean? Quinn, what do you think the V stands for?
Maybe virtual.
Virtual's one. Think about 1-800-CHAT-GPT. How do I do that? I listen to what? A voice.
Oh, voice, yeah.
So instead of an API, there's a voice API. Dot AI. So if I go, look at this. Enterprise. What does enterprise stand for, Quinn? What's the meaning of enterprise? What's an enterprise? We need to know this for the test. Catherine, what's an enterprise? Catherine Bremer. And if we don't know what an enterprise is, Caitlin, what do we do?
Look it up.
Yeah, look it up. So don't sit there looking at my beautiful face. So Luke, you looking it up?
Yeah, I just did.
And what is it? What's an enterprise?
This says any type of software, hardware, or system that is part of a large organization with more than
Large organization.
Yeah.
Do we belong to an enterprise?
Yes.
Yes. Do we have a number of departments? Do we have a number of employees? Do we have a number of students? Yes. That's enterprise. So what a lot of companies are doing is they'll give like a free version to individuals, right, Luke? But they'll start charging, giving more services to enterprise ready voice AI agents. So I looked at this, give it a try, and this will create a voice AI agent similar to ChatGPT, Luke. But you can get a phone number. You can then get your own language model, put in your own sources, and somebody can call your number. Let's say, what's your major, Luke?
Marketing.
Marketing. Let's say 1-800-marketing. And your chatbot, you can decide you want a male, you want a female, what do you want them to say, what model you want, and create your own for a free trial, and they'll give you a phone number. And instead you'll have then call Luke, and maybe for Luke, right? The problem with 1-800-Luke, if Fogel is a lot of people don't know. I don't know if you want a whole brand on that. You know what I mean? But maybe a brand, because it's not like Brad Pitt. You know what I mean? 1-800 Brad Pitt or something. You understand? So in this case, Bad Bunny or something. You know what I mean? It could be Bad Bunny Bad Bunny AI or something. So in this case here, you can create it. So this is what I want to do after the exam, is to play around with this. It's incredible that each of you would then have a phone number that hopefully we can get vanities that will be your sources, just like you did for Notebook LM. Did you do the Notebook LM, Luke? What chapter did you do?
I did TG2.
TG2. Instead of TG2, you put all your information about Luke or Luke's marketing, and people could ask then questions. Tell me about Luke and so forth. What offices? What do you think?
Yeah, it sounds awesome.
It sounds awesome. And I was trying to play around with it, and I got a couple of numbers there. You know what I mean? And then I'm still going to play around with it. And so you can sign up, give it a try. And then they give you a certain amount of, small amount of money, the tokens that you can do, but it's great for a demonstration already. Hey, I can do it for you. You can even create that as a business, Luke. I'll make you as marketing. I'll make you your own phone number, They don't have to know that you're using them or something. It's a whole service that and I'll update it, I'll put in you can even do it for them. Give me all your documents and I'll put it in. So this is new. They've made a new, this is a company, just a couple of guys started it in San Francisco, and they got to be a Y Combinator. They're now in San Francisco. They have like 17 people, but they're just a startup. It's starting to raise money, and then every time they're trying to do new ones, and they have different, you can see it about docs and signing up and everything. So if you have some time, look at it. Those of you who are really curious to see what it is, I want to add this to our projects and stuff. Add this as another, assignment. Everybody get their own names, and then they give you certain numbers, and they give you a number. As long as you use this VAPI, you can keep that number. You understand? As long, it's great for demo purposes, and then later on, you could even basically, if a business wanted to use it, you just pay as you go, how much as much as you talk, you pay for it. So I just think that's awesome. You got it? So what is the thing? They call themselves VAPI. Why do they call themselves VAPI? The V4 then, Quinn? Voice. But it's coming from API, of connecting with others. And what are they really doing? A lot of companies are really doing it. They're from open source. You remember we talked about open source. They're collecting a number of things from open source, and they even allow you to decide which model you want to use. Do you want to use OpenAI? Do you want to use Grok? Do you want to use a number of different ones? You choose what learning models you want, and it will speak, and then you decide, do you want a male? Do you want a female? What kind of voice do you want? And later on, some of these, you can clone your own voice. And it's interesting. Okay? So I just wanted you to see that. And I'm glad, Caitlin, we worked it out together. Isn't that great? It's all a team effort. And that's what I wanted you to learn too. In this world, there's nothing just doing, but it's nice when you can do things on your own, but you need to reach out to people, because what? It's happening so quickly. Two, a lot of times sometimes you don't have authority to do anything. And then you also with experience, we know that after a while you say to yourself, Blackboard has issues. Remember, Wiley has issues also. If you use Safari, sometimes it didn't work, Wiley. So it's all the time we get used to it. Okay, anything else? How are we doing here? All right. So let me share my screen again. So this is a lot of twiddling done here. I'll leave that off for a second. Let's go to our regular section, our regular section. K, our regular section. Everybody with me? Regular section. Catherine, you're with the regular section. You got it? So what do I always want to do? I always want to start off with what's due. So what do we have next Monday, Catherine? Catherine Bremer, what's next Monday? March 3rd. Lily, what's March 3rd? What's happening March 3rd? Can you imagine it's March already next week? I don't know where February went to. Lily, what's happening?
Our exam.
Our exam. Where's our exam? It's in person. It's in SBA 204, right, Lily? So it's in room, the School of Business, room 204 in the lab. And what I'd like you to do is I've given you a review guide, exam 1, to see what it's going to cover. So where does that list? Caitlin, where's the review guide? In which section do I go to?
In PowerPoints and documents.
Okay, so let's go to PowerPoints and documents. You go there too to make sure you have it. And here's the idea that you say here that, right, that you have exam 1 will take place in the School of Business 204 PC lab on Monday, March 3rd. It is during class, it is at class time. This class begins at 6:35. So what I suggest you do is you get there 10 minutes early. People are kind of slow to get into our Zoom. Like 10 minutes late, that isn't going to work for Monday. So you need to get there. If you're remote or something, you have to get, and you have to take in consideration traffic and everything. It's not going to count. The exam will cover the chapters that we talked about. Chapter 1, TG 1, 2, Chapter 5 and 4. It'll also cover the audit assignments that we were given and the class lectures that we were having. Also the guest speaker. The exam will be in person and proctored at class time. Arrive 10 minutes early. The exam is closed note, closed book, closed AI software. It is all in your head, but you can use your notes, your book, AI software to help you prepare. What you need to do, the exam will take the entire class period. If you finish early, you can leave. You need to check out. And what we talked about before, if I talk about anything, it says bring picture ID. So if it says bring picture ID, Quinn, if I think about controls and access controls, what would be bring picture ID be? In terms
Would
of
that be
control?
a physical control?
Well, it's not to enter the room, you'll need it, but what else will it be? It'll be a way in which I'm doing authentication or authorization?
Authentication.
Authentication. That you are who you are. Here I see Quinn Karan, but you know, can I change my name here in Zoom? Yes or no, Quinn?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, so literally I've seen you every time, but do I really know in detail? And I probably could, you know, match your face to somewhere else on the UM or something like that, but it's another way to authenticate. And in this case, we will be taking the exam on the computers that are in the lab. The computers that are in the lab have the software called Respondents. Have you ever heard of that, Quinn?
Yeah, I have.
Okay. But you need to bring also your laptop that also has a version, the latest version of Respondents. And in terms of business continuity, why am I asking you to do that, Quinn?
In case there's technical difficulties with their computers.
And do you think that is a possibility?
Yeah.
Of course. So one of the things, if you're in business continuity, right, Caitlin, is to prepare in case something goes wrong, that you can continue doing that, right? So that's what we're doing. Everyone is required to bring a picture ID. Everyone is required to bring their laptop. Everyone is required to bring their phone. Usually I don't have to tell anybody to bring their phone, because why? Why do you need to bring your phone? Quinn?
For the dual authentication.
Dual authentication, because what do you need to do? You're going to go into Blackboard, right? And it's going to be asking you for authentication. You're going to be using Respond. It's going to be asking you for that. So right here is what we've created as the study guide for you. We've already talked about that. Close note, close book, close AI software, just you on respondents. The exam will be taken. And the format will be 2 parts, Lily. There will be multiple choice, just like the quizzes that you've taken on adaptive assignment, just like the quizzes you took online that you got 2 turns to take it. You've taken those, right, Lily? The quizzes. So they'll be in a similar format. And then you'll have a second part of the exam that will be open-ended questions. You will be logging in with your authentication, with your Duo Mobile the first time. And think about it. After you study, Lily, think about what you want to do first. Do you want to do the multiple choice or the open-ended? In previous semesters, I made it that everybody take the multiple choice first and then the open-ended. And then students said, you know what, Dr. Rush, I'd like to take the open-ended first because I have all the information in my head and I like to just spit it all out. Lily, you have a choice. So what I'm saying now is you have a choice, but you have to decide in advance and you cannot go back and forth. If you decide, Lily, to do open-ended first, and they're up to 3 questions, then you have to finish it. Then you submit, and then you have to pick up your phone again and then do the multiple choice. If you want to do the other way, that's fine. What I can tell you is usually 99% of the students finish on time. Our advantage for being, there's no other class after us. So those of you that have accommodations in a letter format that need more time can do it without any problem. You understand? But you just have to tell me when you enter the room if you have special accommodations, and I'll put you at a certain place. But other than that, we'll be okay. And then I'm giving you the concepts here. It'll be nothing new here. It will be following the concepts that you did of hardware, right? CPU, the central processing unit characteristics, when we're talking about input or output, what is primary storage, what is secondary storage. You remember that we talked about that, Luke, of basically RAM. We talked about external hard drive, what is going to be volatile, what is going to be not. ALU, the arithmetic logic unit, the control unit, RAM, random access memory, that when we put in software, when we're going to try to load, for instance, our PowerPoints, a copy of that PowerPoint is going to go into RAM versus ROM as part of read-only memory. That's part of the operating system is in there. That's set by the manufacturers, registers, clients versus server, different types of software, the difference between operating system versus application, software licensing. Remember, we talked about open source versus proprietary. That's why something like this, Quinn, a VAPI can be open source. What they're doing is basically taking all the open source models and putting it together and giving you a framework there that you don't even have to be a programmer. You just basically like questions to ask, which avatar do you want? How do you want their voice to be? Do you want it to be like a English gentleman? Do you want it to be a cool dude? Do you want it to be a professional woman? Whatever it is, you do it. Data versus information versus knowledge, the IT infrastructure, talking about its components, personnel, and services. What's the trend? It seems like, what do we want? We want it to be real time. We wanted to make decisions quicker. We want to use even AI to try to help us in forecasting, whether it's in healthcare, whether it's in marketing, whether it's in finance. We talk about security. We need to know what an exposure is, what's a threat, what's a vulnerability. What do we mean by social engineering? That we're gonna try to befriend us, and we're gonna, just like, you remember, were you there, Quinn, when we had the security director? He said, don't give your phone to anybody. Remember, he gave all those lists. And you, Quinn, you're a nice person, right? You're polite. I said, you know what, Quinn, my battery went out. Can I borrow your phone? You say, what? I'm not going to give it to you. What a mean person you are, right? I mean, it just, and they say it in such a manner that, yeah, sure, take my phone, and you're listening to them, or you don't even think about it. Okay. And then denial of service, distributed, all the viruses that we talked about, and you have to know the difference between intentional versus deliberate, intentional versus unintentional, spyware, ransomware. You remember we talked about ransomware, that they can take hold of. What is the university concerned about? Taking hold of our university databases there and the hospital. So they take my PowerPoints. What do I care? They take my PowerPoints. Do I care? Really, I'm not going to spend a nickel protecting my PowerPoints, but I better be spending millions protecting the university medical campus. If you have to go for surgery tomorrow, Quinn, right, and you broke your leg, right, they better know which leg it is and better have all those x-rays done, right? You don't want to say, oh, Quinn, tell us, which leg should we do? And what do you need to be done? Right? I mean, who are you supposed to see? Can you imagine that? And if they're down for a week, you think how many millions they'll be losing per day? And if they're always down, guess what? Do they have alternatives? I can go to another hospital. I can go to a Baptist. I can go wherever, doctors, So this is the idea that you need to know about ransomware. So what did you get in this case? What did you learn, William? Were you there for the security officer when he was here?
I was.
Okay. What did you get when I asked them about ransomware? What are they doing at the university? Do they have like Bitcoin accounts or something? Do you remember what he said? He basically said they give it to the insurance company. They let them take care of it. He didn't say whether they had an account or not, but it's basically, I'm going to transfer my risk to an insurance company, just like you do with a car, right? You don't want to be paying, some idiot runs into you tonight, on I-95, right? And crashes your car, they get injured or whatever because they're an idiot, right? You want to have insurance. So the whole idea is you have to figure out how much risk I have. What am I talking about? What's the asset worth? How do I manage it? And what's mitigation? So I have to figure out, Colin, what does the word mitigation mean?
To like minimize something.
Minimize. And what do I want to do? I want to minimize my risk. So I'm going to have to basically control that and put in controls. Either I'll mitigate it by saying I'll accept the risk. I'll accept the risk that my PowerPoint slides will be stolen. Colin, I'm accepting that risk. And I'm not going to spend a penny on it. Or I can say, you know what? I'll mitigate it by putting in more controls, or I'll transfer it, right, to others. Then you'll talk about biometrics, right, that they can use it, data governance, what's the purpose of that, the goals, the data hierarchy. You remember we talked about that, Finley, the zeros and ones to a character versus a field. Remember, it's like a column in a spreadsheet. A record is what, Finley? A row in a spreadsheet. A file is like a sheet, basically a sheet, a number of sheets together. I can think about it as a table. The keys, primary versus secondary key. The need to know, the least privilege, right? What does least privilege mean? Just like in my regular class, you have the least privilege. You have the privilege to be a student, right? That you can read what I have, you can download what I put up, but you're limited versus the audit area, right? I want you to have more of a role. Data warehouse versus data mart. Maybe we'll talk about that on the next time we meet. What's non-volatile versus volatile storage, the data dictionary that's going to tell me about my data, not specifically my data. HTTP, that's hypertext transfer protocol. It's basically the way in which I transfer data on a browser. If I'm going to go to e-commerce and I'm going to Amazon, I make sure that it is secure. If I'm giving my credit card information, I want it to be secure because by default, the way that the computer transfers in hypertext, it transfers it via text. Then I talk about big data transactions, transaction processing systems, and encryption. You got it, Finley? And what I suggest you do, you find out what that is. I don't care how you find out. Do you have sources, Finley? You have really a lot of sources. You can even put all that into what? Notebook LM, right? That you've already done. And as you're walking, right, or doing something, listen to a podcast. Well, however you can do it. Then what I've done, Ava, is I've listed, I'm going to give you open-ended questions. Up to 3 questions. And what I've done here is I've given you sample questions. Talking about improving digital security, explain how the practice helps secure digital information, use the concepts from where? The textbooks, the lecture. We were even graciously got the Chief Information Security Officer coming. Here is through a question about what we did on one of our assignments where we had to compare local recording versus cloud computing, the benefits of YouTube live streaming and Zoom's remote local features. What situations would you choose? How are these tools going to support business promotion? Right, Luke? Just like how we had said before. 3, another thing about Zoom and what we talk about, the cloud-based screen recorder that saves to your computer, combination of Zoom and screen recorder, give examples from your assignment on how you would choose it, what factors would influence. Here it's on database, define what a field is, a record, a table, and database management. In designing a university student database, which data fields are essential and which field should function as the primary key. Explain why the primary key is important. In this case, 5 is define data governance. Have we covered that, Finley? We have explained how it should be implemented in a university setting. Differentiate between what? Authentication, authorization. Which one of these processes is always performed first? To illustrate it's important, provide specific examples how least privilege, authentication, and authorization were applied in class. We used it all the time, right? Audit area, regular area. You're a professional on that, right? What you're giving for roles. 6, compare and contrast risk management, risk analysis, give examples in a university setting. And number 7, last but not least, Ava, is what? Explain how Notebook LM was useful when studying for the exam, recommend any fine-tuning for its features, and explore potential benefits for business outside educational use.
Did you post this
Yes, I did. Where?
in classroom or in
Where
Blackboard?
does it say? It says if you go to what's due. And where does it say?
Right there. Thank you.
Useful, no? And it's into open-ended questions, Finley. My idea is I'd rather you focus on those 7 questions and I'll choose up to 3 rather than, everything's open here. We could ask 100 different ones. I'd rather you spend the time and know this, Finley, and then you can focus.
Is the
What else?
format of it going to be like multiple choice or is it open-ended?
What did I just say?
Open-ended, like 3
No,
open-ended.
what did I say here? Which one? The open-ended questions. What did I say? When I go to my review guide, right? Go again to PowerPoints and documents. You do it yourself. Go to PowerPoints and documents. Go to exam 1 review guide. What did I say? Format. Yes, no, Finley?
Okay, open-ended and multiple choice.
And the open-ended, you have to describe it. It's not just one sentence, but to show that you know the material. And you decide, Finley, what you want to do first. When you're ready, once you sit at your computer in the SBA 204, once you sit there, you'll know ahead of time what you want to do first. Do you want to do the open-ended or do you want to do the multiple choice first? And that'll be I'm allowing you to do your prerogative. But once you start, Finley, and say, I'm going to do multiple choice, you can't in the middle switch to the other. You have to finish one, submit, and then you take out your phone and you'll have to again log in and do your duo at that time. You got it? Because I feel that people learn in different ways. Some people said, hey, I want to, I studied so much for the open-ended. I want to get that out of my mind already. You know what I mean? And then I'll do the multiple choice. It's for some people, it's kind of easier, the multiple choice. Or other people say, I'm so nervous. Let me get the multiple choice out of the way, and then I'll spend more time on the open end. And how you prepare, Colin, is up to you. But just make sure that so you've done all that, in your notebook LM, you see you have multiple choice questions already. You can view also the other multiple choice questions, Colin, from the other groups, right? You have access to see their multiple choice questions. And I ask people to also put the answers in. So we may take a couple of those multiple choice, even from what the notebook LM produced. But they're all kind of like the same types of questions, right, Finley, if you look at them, once you know the concept. It's just said in a different way, with different choices. So what do you think, Greta?
I think it seems clear.
Yeah, straightforward. There's not going to be any surprises.
Mm-hmm.
And open-ended, it'll be among those questions. Maybe a little bit of different phrasing or something, you know what I mean? But it'll cover those areas. And the multiple choice, it'll cover those concepts that I listed, in the study. Because there's so much, right, Greta? There's so much information there. It's like almost a hose. But also I wanted to do some of the open-ended. Think about how much, guys, you've covered here already. With all the Zoom, the difference between cloud recording and recording to the computer, right? Caitlin, you know that, the differences. You know what were the problems of it. When you think about that notebook LM, you had your data sources, you could have, in the middle, you had like basically using their open-ended questions that you can put in, and then you had the podcast come out, and then you can join. There were some issues that joining has some issue because that's in beta. So what I found even in using it, it is amazing when you hear the voices. Those are AI generated voices. They sound quite believable, don't they, Caitlin? I mean, it is incredible. And later on, think about it. that you could even put your own information into that notebook LM. You could put in your whole, you know, LinkedIn or your whole information about you in there and have it create a podcast of how great Caitlin is. You know, they'd have a whole discussion. Oh, did you hear she's at the University of Miami and these are her majors and this was from, these are her interests. I mean, you could put that, you could write, it could sing your praises. And if you had a company, right, that you could do, it's amazing. And how much time and how quickly it does it. And now they're going to get more. What I'd like to see in something like that notebook LM is I'd like to see a voice to text transcript, right? I'd like to be able to do more adjustments. I'd like, when I join in, I'd like it to be recorded in the next version of a podcast where it would have the three of us, maybe the male, the female, and Dr. Rush, or maybe with you, Caitlin. You know what I mean? We have like 4 people, you know, on a podcast interviewing somebody that could come in. So, but it's the beginning. And then what do you have in this model, which is so fantastic, is there's such a curiosity and it's a way that people want to get better, that there's always competition. It's almost like one gets better than the other, you know. Google even tries to get better, and then there's competitors. I saw there's another competitor, it's called Lollipad, and they basically allow you to have your own voice. And then you can choose how many people you want in the podcast. And if you pay, it will even then put it into, you know, Spotify or somewhere else that you could actually publish your podcast and make it a whole podcaster. So think about it. What's your major again, Caitlin?
I'm business undecided.
Undecided. You could make a business on creating podcasts for others on their businesses. Let me create it. You know what I mean? You could almost think about that. And then with that VAPI, with the V for voice, you could create then phone numbers based on certain businesses. You know, if you're a dentist office, they can take take appointments. To if you're tech support or someone, they have like scenarios that you can pick certain scenarios, and then it will cover them. You know, the question is in the detail after you get through is where's it going to go? But at least we're in the beginning of the cusp that we can talk about it intelligently, where we can go with it. So what else that I can answer your questions? So Ellie, what do you think? What's your, where do we, did that answer your questions about the exam? Okay. So this is what I want to do on Wednesday. Wednesday, I want to do 2 parts. Wednesday, I want to go over this and start preparing for the exam. And then on Wednesday, come with questions that you have, what's not clear to you. Do you understand? And then I'll go over that, plus I'll go over our next assignment. But I'll leave it to you if you want to, if you have, oh, I'm not clear on this, I'm not clear on basically on what is a bad act or what are deliberate, whatever questions you have. And some of the questions you have, I may even say, you know, don't worry about that. That, you know, is irrelevant right now for the test. That's how I want to proceed with it. And then we'll continue on Wednesday. I think that's a better time. Give you time to kind of, Quinn, give you time kind of to absorb it all and then come back with questions. And if you don't have questions, I'll have questions for you. I'll reverse it, you know, and explain things that I think you have you know, you don't have an in-depth knowledge, and maybe you do, but I'll create it that way. Anything else? Greta, anything else I need? Pretty straightforward. Okay, so I'll take attendance. I think, Caitlin, we're complete with your issues, right?
Yeah, we are.
And if you want to stay with me longer, everyone is always welcome to stay as long as you want afterwards, if you want to discuss anything. let me state that. And Greta, why don't we stay with me after class just for a moment? We can kind of review what we needed to do. And Michelle, how's it going? Did that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me share my screen. And let me go back to attendance. Let me check in. Let's see if I can start checking. 9783. So 9783. Greta, if you could be so kind and put it in the chat, in case the people aren't paying attention. 9783, and you're welcome to leave. Stay with me if you have other questions. And I think, let me make sure that I turn off everything.